everyone, and welcome to this exclusive webinar on leveraging Industry 4.0 in manufacturing. This webinar is being conducted under the Women Aces of Manufacturing program presented by Aditya Birla Group and supported by NASSCOM Center of Excellence, CMTI, C4I4 Lab, and IIT Indore Drishti. We have eminent global speakers with us today in our panel. I would like to also share that at the end of the webinar, we have lucky draw prizes which will be announced. So please be attentive and win exciting prizes. I would now like to invite the moderator for the panel discussion, the editorial director of Pro MFG Media, Mr. Niranjan Mudholkar, and a very warm welcome once again to all the audience. And over to you, Niranjan.
Okay. Thank you so much, Ramya, for that very energetic start. It's a wonderful day. Like Sama pointed out that we are all from different time zones. So thankfully, it's a daytime for all of us. And let me introduce all my wonderful panelists out here. So let me start off with Sama Shaki, who is the Managing Director of Birla Carbon Egypt. Sama started her career at Birla Carbon Egypt in 1998 as a chemist in quality department. In 1912, she moved to work for the regional TCB RCB Technical Services and then was the head of the BCE quality in 2014. In 2019, she became the managing director of Birla Carbon Egypt, and incidentally, she is also the first woman unit head in Birla Carbon. Welcome once again, Sama, and thank you so much for joining us all the way from Egypt. Let me come to my second speaker today afternoon. That's Soumya Chaturvedi. Good afternoon, Soumya. Soumya Chaturvedi is the Director Supply Chain for Cummins Asia Pacific, and she is responsible for leading the supply chain functions, including planning, logistics, purchasing, manufacturing, quality, and distributors facing customer order management across the APAC region. She holds a bachelor degree in engineering and MBA in operations from SPJ in Mumbai. Welcome aboard, Soumya. And last but not least, we have Sirisha A, who is the head of industrial engineering and new product launch, working with Continental Automotive India. So Sirisha in this role is responsible for developing concepts for manufacturing and product launches, capacity planning, and defining the technology roadmap for the plant. She is also a technical expert for homologation. Welcome aboard, Sirisha. And if everybody is wondering why I introduced Sama first, Soumya second, and Sirisha the third. So I had actually a logic in my mind, which I explained to Sirisha last evening. India being a country where we think that Atithi Devo Bhava, our guests are our gods. And since Sama is from Egypt, we think she's a guest for us. And I thought probably that's why we should introduce her first. So once again, welcome aboard. So straight away, let's get into the discussion. We have a very interesting subject lined up, leveraging Industry 4.0 technologies under the Women Aces of Manufacturing program. And while this is oriented towards women professionals in manufacturing, we've decided to keep it gender agnostic so that there are insights and valuable information that even our male counterparts can take out of this. Let me start off this question with Sama first. Sama, if we talk about the manufacturing industry at large, Industry 4.0 is something that we cannot miss out on. What do you think is the current impact from your industry's perspective on the overall manufacturing industry for us?
Thank you very much. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all of you from wherever you are connected. Thanks for the introduction and thanks for starting with me. Actually, Industry 4 is having very important impact. Smart result of the Industry 4 is smart and connected facility with advanced automation, real-time communication, and remote monitoring. Lot of data as a result of Industry 4 revolution. And this data is having a very important impact on driving decision-making in organization. And this drive advances with the right data analytics, proper monitoring and facility is controlled, this makes the decision-making right decision, which result advances in quality, reliability, and agility. This is tools for all managers to operate and function the organization digitally without or with limited human intervention.
Okay, thank you so much for that insight, Sama. Sama, I'd like to come to you. Sama mentioned one of the key aspects of Industry 4.0 being agility. We've all witnessed how the COVID-19 pandemic impacted supply chains across the world. And thankfully, we had Industry 4.0 to help us. So how do you look at the impact of 4.0 from the supply chain point of view here?
Yeah, so thank you, Niranjan. And I'm coming from Singapore, which is probably a little bit of a balance in mixed manufacturing, which has got Industry 4.0, but also got a lot of digitization context attached to Industry 4.0. So definitely agility is one of the important aspects of Industry 4.0, right, which brings in a lot of data analytics for decision-making perspective. And through this COVID context, which a lot of logistics disruptions that went across the supply chain and which was not able to kind of give conventional manufacturing industries. I'm not talking about the B2C kind of context, but B2B industries, which had a lot of disruptions facing from the logistics network collapse due to COVID and the restrictions that were posed around. A lot of data analytics which came across from the solutions related to bordering Industry 4 or digitization were able to be surfaced out and hence make decisions that were impacting planning and hence helping control inventory when there was a lot of adverse effect on supplies, right? So what you needed was not there, but what you did not want had the risk of being piled up, right? So I think those analytics that came across from all the network solutions, which are linked to the Industry 4.4 mechanisms, were one of the things that probably helped us. And unfortunately, this is also pulled in a lot of scale up on digitization, where industries want to go ahead and adopt a lot of new technologies, but are now constrained with the availability of the electronics thing, which is the adverse effect of scale up of Industry 4.4. And I'm sitting in a region which is predominantly producing those electronics, right? And you can see that impact coming across not only the manufacturing sector, which probably is related to a lot of automotive, consumer, electronics, etc., but other industries as well, right? Who want to invest in investments to upgrade technology.
Absolutely. Well said. I think you brought out the other side of the story also. So I'm very happy to inform all the three panelists that besides manufacturing professionals, we have a lot of engineering students watching and listening to this particular webinar today. In fact, some of the academic institutes have put up projectors in their auditoriums where we are being broadcast and telecast live right now. So close to 100, 150 students from each of those institutes are watching us right now. In fact, Sirisha, my next question, or rather continuation of the same question, is to you. And I am actually using this question from one of the students from SRM Institute of Science and Technology. The name of the student is Tanay Chandiwal, and he has asked the same question: what is the impact of Industry 4.0? But he's asking this in the context of the Indian manufacturing industry. Since you are an Indian manufacturing professional, I'd like to understand from you, how have things changed since COVID-19, particularly after the implementation of Industry 4.0 solutions?
Sure, I think that's a good question. So when we are talking about in the Indian context, traditionally, if you look back, say 4 to 5 years back, not every organization has actually transitioned to Industry 4.0. Today, we see the benefit. More particularly, I hear you say after COVID. Yeah, that is more precisely where the transition is little more rapid, because we are also want to do a lot of automation. There is no human intervention. That is where a little more advancement in all the industries has taken place. Now, when we are, so the question is, what is the impact? Impact for sure, be it India or any region, the advantages would be phenomenal when we have Industry 4.0, because the decision making becomes data driven. There is no human intervention, which means the quality is also improving. Particularly, India for sure has gained a lot of advantage. Even the small scale industries to the major manufacturers also have started implementing and seeing the benefit. Yes.
Okay, very
Niranjan,
well
if
said.
sorry, Niranjan, if I may
No
just
problem.
add to something. So just from a perspective of percentages of adoption of Industry 4.0 across, if you look at it, 60% of the adoption of those tools, techniques, etc., is still within the manufacturing sector, right? To improve manufacturing efficiencies. Around 50% of that tools and implementations of those is in the warehousing space, right? Where you have a lot of automation in the warehousing space and hence linked to both B2B, B2C. And close to 35 to 40% of that implementation has trickled down to supply chain. This is like,
Okay.
just an overall perspective of the adoption of those tools and technologies that I'm just sharing across, Niranjan.
Fair point, Soumya. Some of my question is to you. When we talk about Industry 4.0 solutions, particularly from the shop floor point of view, the operators or the professionals who are working right at the shop floor, from their point of view, what I have seen when I've traveled to the shop floors is that they think that it is more to do with the management, or it is more to do with the people who are just taking the decisions. So what I want to understand from you for the benefit of these manufacturing professionals is, why is it important for them to understand Industry 4.0 solutions so that it can help them grow as a manufacturing professional?
Okay, adoption of Industry 4 is essential for any company to remain competitive in the global market. It has the results related to cost efficiency, machine monitoring solution, predictive maintenance strategies. It helped decreasing the downtime, increase the throughput, and overall reduce the cost of the organization and supplying right quality product and services. With all this knowledge in the organization, young professionals or manufacturing professionals, they will learn more and they will take the right decision, which make them skilled and ready for any change, agile for any situation. And the good example we mentioned is COVID-19, where the skills was required that time to move immediately and very quickly, rapidly to catch the customer requirement while there is a safety issues, the social distance. Many people started working from home. So being aware of the technology and having the right skills makes the life easier for the professional in manufacturing and makes them ready for any opportunity also. It's not necessarily to be ready within the same company. People should invest in themselves to be ready for any opportunity inside or outside.
Okay, Sirisha, when you joined the industry about 13, 14 years back, things were very different at that time. People were not so much talking about Industry 4.0. From your perspective, how has it actually impacted you as a manufacturing professional?
So, as an individual, when we talk about organization, for sure, we see a lot of benefit both in productivity and quality. But when we look at as an individual, there is a lot of advantage, because here today we are talking about VUCA world. Every day, the external world is changing. Even we also have to upskill ourselves to the latest technology. So when we are learning Industry 4.0, which means as an individual, the team is also growing. Secondly, it's adding value to the organization, not doing the way conventionally things are done, but we are able to add value to the organization. So employees are benefiting, organization is benefiting. That's a win-win for both.
Wonderful. Soumya, I have a question from the audience here, from a gentleman called Dhananjay Pagere. And he's asking a question. There are gaps existing in supply chain management. So, can these gaps be considered as low hanging fruits in case of manufacturing companies where we can actually fill up these gaps using Industry 4.0 solutions?
Yes and no, it depends because of
Okay.
what kind of gaps they are, right?
Right.
If they are gaps related to, because the supply chain is a very, very broad broad domain, right? So where is the gap? The gap, if it's in a planning context, Industry 4.0 is not going to kind of close that gap. That has to be done with effective planning tools, your data inputting related to your forecast accuracies, etc. Right? But if there
Right.
is void in the space of agility or efficiency in terms of fulfilling customer requirement, as Sama was talking about, say, transportation, pick and place, segregations, data crunching kind of stuff, right? Then, of course, definitely an Industry 4.0 solution can be kind of implemented. For example, let me give you two examples there, right? Cobots, which are not highly, not the high-end robots, but simply cobots. Today in the manufacturing space can be kind of tuned to do all the pick and place aspects, which conventionally from a cost of efficiency scale perspective was also, contractually kind of managed. So those are the areas where you definitely think the efficiencies can move faster in supply chain if you adopt it. Secondly, bordering the Industry 4.4 is also digital printing kind of stuff, right? Where you have wide variety of volumes sometimes, and then you have not a wide variety of product ranges, but not the scales of volume. So there you can use these elements related to digital printing, etc., to kind of bring that perspective so that you can cater to the mixed context of high variety and low volume, or low volume, high variety context as well. I just hope I answered that gentleman's question.
I'm sure. Sama, a few days back, Birla Carbon released its sustainability report. And when we talk about sustainability, energy efficient operations are the key part of it. So I have a question from a gentleman called as Riaz Ahmed Kazi, who is incidentally an employee with Cummins India. He wants to understand what is the importance of Industry 4.0 solutions in the context of sustainability and having energy efficient operations.
Very good question. Very strong relation between Industry 4 and sustainability. Industry 4 helps company to reduce their environmental impact by reducing waste, increasing resource efficiency. Simple example, in Birla Carbon, we are generating our own energy from a byproduct or secondary element coming from the manufacturing process. So we became energy positive, and this is very important and the strength for Birla Carbon, Egypt and other Birla Carbon locations, to produce own energy, reduce impact on the environment, and save the natural resources like petroleum, oil, or natural gases.
Okay. So, Sirisha, when we talk about Industry 4.0 solutions or technologies, there's not just one technology. And there's not a status quo there. It keeps evolving, it keeps advancing. So therein comes the role of, reskilling and upskilling. How do you look at it as a manufacturing professional? Because at the same one time you have to do the job that you have in front of you, but at the same time you also have to keep yourself abreast of the technology so that you can keep moving ahead. How do you balance that out?
Okay, so some things what organizations also do is that straight we are not starting from zero to complete Industry 4.0 at a full-fledged scale. It will be a step-by-step evolution, I would say. So even when the individuals are also upskilling themselves, one is it can also be a step by step. It would start with a simple automation, then maybe scripting automation through Power BI, or we are talking about digital twin. So technology, it will be stage wise automation, and which means when we also talking about the individual, it can also be in a similar fashion. Everyone cannot learn everything in say maybe 1 month of time, but then it can be a structured learning as well to help themselves to cope up with the changing in the organization as well.
Okay, Sama, as a leader of the organization, what is your approach to training and skilling? How important is it for you to ensure that your team members stay updated with the latest in technology?
In our organization, culture of continuous learning is very important, and to build high demand skills. And in my opinion, re-skilling or upskilling of existing employee is a very important opportunity every organization has, instead of going for the cost of external hire. And this is makes strengthens the workforce in general, and both culturally and educationally, and they feel attached more to the organization. They are given the opportunity, and at the same time we get the advantage of their experience and knowledge, and making them motivated by continuous learning. And this for sure benefits the productivity of the organization and the efficiency.
So, from the supply chain point of view, while we talk about skilling as an individual, we talk about skilling the organization. How important is it to ensure that the entire supply chain is in alignment with one, a vision that your organization wants to follow when it comes to technology?
I think customer fulfillment and is the key driving force across the supply chain in my organization, at least in terms of ensuring that we are the customer fulfillment, right? In terms of various matrices related to customer, is that binding context that kind of brings us across supply chain. And it starts with the inwarding to the conversion in the manufacturing to bringing it out to the customer through the logistics network, right? That whole chain, value chain is supply chain.
True.
And unless all of these sub-functions of supply chain have that common agenda with respect to what's in it for the customer in terms of various parameters of this is not going to be aligned, whether and then there's no point in putting these tools in silos in functions across. That there's heavy automation in manufacturing, but there's no automation tracking in the logistics arm, right? Then they don't sync together to say, okay, we are automated in terms of adopting technologies of Industry 4.4. For example, today I'm sitting here in Singapore, and the network of all our customer deliveries spans across Asia Pacific, which is 17 odd countries, right? Starting back from Australia and going all the way up to Sri Lanka, back in the Asian region, correct? And all the products for this region come from the various manufacturing locations within the Cummins network, which are there in Europe, which are there in US, which are there in India, and which are in China as well, right? So those are the areas. So while there may be automation in manufacturing, if we haven't put automation in terms of using the technologies of supply chain in Industry 4.4, in terms of tracking, in terms of network optimization, in terms of this thing, we are not an Amazon today, definitely not an Amazon today, but unless we don't have a path to get there, I don't think then we are all synced in adopting that Industry 4.4. So both these areas. So for me, is tracking 17 odd countries spread in terms of the network, in terms of what is the delivery goods mechanism, where is it, how is it across? If I don't do this, then I'm not syncing that for the customer. So that's the perspective I would like to keep, that it's important for all the sub-functions within a supply chain organization to adopt to that. I hope I've answered your query, Niranjan.
Yeah, I think that the point about alignment is what is quite important here, so that everybody is in sync and they have one goal and one vision in terms of customer satisfaction, right?
Absolutely right. I think in our organization, it's very, very prevalently spoken across that we exist because our customers pay us, right? So so anywhere, all of us have that perspective, right? This whole business context. So I think and not digressing into that subject, but definitely that's a vision. That's where the vision can be commonalized across all these, is where we follow that. And since we heavily depend upon the manufacturing network within the Cummins world, as I said, to Europe, to US, to China, to India, it's very important for us to have a very strong logistic automation in this region to be able to visualize what's coming in and what's getting out to the customer, and in what pace is it getting out.
Absolutely. Sirisha, I have a very interesting question here. Since you are the expert here in terms of new product launches and new product developments, I have a question from a gentleman, or rather a student called as Gokul Ram. He represents BS Abdul Rahman Crescent Institute of Science and Technology. He says, I want to become an expert in R&D skills. What skills do I need to adopt or implement or learn from Industry 4.0 to ensure that I become a good R&D engineer?
Okay. So I would say predominantly Industry 4.0, it is used in manufacturing presently. But
Right.
however, in terms of the skills, typically in Industry 4.0, we are also talking about basically automation. Automation we can do by scripting. So a specific skill, if I can talk about, maybe C programming is something, Python, any of the automation software which is used is something would be an entry, and which is also helpful in R&D as well. Yeah.
Okay, so of course it's all the more important from manufacturing, but R&D also, it has certain value to it, right?
Right.
Uh, some of
Niranjan,
my
if I may just add one point, is, anything to do with logical data analytics or data analysis, whether it's in the product quality or whether it's in the process quality area, if that intuitiveness is there, I think it's all about data science analysis to be able to draw relevance. To add, what Sirisha said is about the technical programming, this thing, but I'm not a software expert, but what I understand is there's a lot of data that needs to be analyzed to help us find out a solution. So the base of data science is the big thing today in ensuring the adaptation of these technologies.
True, indeed, if we look at the overall evolution of this, industry 1 was about mechanization, industry 2 was about electrification, industry 3 was about automation, and industry 4 is, as you very rightly said, it is about digitalization based on data. And data is the name of the game today. Sama, my next question is to you. When you talk about a manufacturing operations, it involves a lot of different functions. It's not just operations on the shop floor. It is supply chains, it is R&D, it is a whole lot of things. It is safety, it is quality. So what is the role that you see technology can play in ensuring that there is a synchronization between cross-functional collaboration?
Collaboration is very important in any organization. And now with technology, manufacturers need tools to help the worker collaboration and stay connected across geographies as a global organization or multinational, and functions as well. Particularly as physical distance is increasing because of safety for measures nowadays. Digital collaboration tools enables workers to have the collective knowledge and of the enterprise and solve problems with experts remotely. There is no need now to sit and travel to reach a problem solving with all technology existing through internet or even Internet of Things data. COVID again 19 was an example for urgent imperative to help less experienced workers to build knowledge and capabilities and to take the advantage of the data through collaboration and technology.
Indeed. Soumya, my next question is to you. Being a supply chain director is also about managing change, responding to the rapidly changing situations in the market. So how do you use technology there to manage this change in the market, and at the same time ensure that things remain intact at your organization?
So currently, I'll talk in the short term, which is in the last 2 to 3 years. For us, we've used technology on data analysis to help us improve our supply chain efficiencies of part and logistic movements across, right? There has been limitation in the last 3 years to put across a lot of automation solutions into the factories because of various restrictions that came in through because of working restrictions, all those which came across from COVID protocols. But last 3 years, there's been huge data analytics that we have kind of utilized to kind of find out what's our across the network of the world, what's the logistic aspects that has happened. So that's one thing that has changed a lot of mindset of how do we, what kind of inventory we stock, how do we stock, what we need to stock, etc. Right? Because when good times are there, all of us don't see how do we produce and what do we produce, right? And when it comes to cyclicity of bad times, then there's this, okay, control inventory, bring that control. That's how generally organizations across we tend to put on our mind. So a lot of our, in the last 2 to 3 years, a lot of it has happened in terms of the areas where we've used logistic analysis to be, and especially data to do that. And data to do a lot of centralized planning, right? Which is in a network-based organization like us, which kind of has multi-dimensions of product dependencies across various geographies, right? There are restrictions, right? Now you couldn't supply parts from A to B country, B to C country kind of stuff. So a lot of planning in terms of what comes within the region, what can come outside the region, right? And those aspects were also based on data-driven approaches across, right? This is what we used currently in the last 2 to 3 years. But what had benefited us in the last 2 to 3 years is the areas that we had started before this COVID period of introduction of cobots, introduction of, digital printing kind of stuff, right? Where part shortages, etc., could be crippling the overall supply chain. We could shift in some countries to manufacture parts through, digital printing, etc., to ensure that there is flow of this thing happening. Because there were cobots and there were other aspects of, availability at the manufacturing, there was a lot of, automation or semi-automation available in the work areas, which were totally dependent on the availability of manpower. So that kind of gave us a little respite to say, okay, we could, still continue the functions of the auto manufacturing areas, which had restrictions of number of people who could come, etc. So that's the benefit that we have seen.
Okay, Sama, as the leader of the operations, of course, proficiency and efficiency are extremely important to you, but equally important is the safety factor, whether it is the safety of the operations or whether it is the safety of your employees. How do you use technology to ensure that the safety is not compromised with?
Actually, technology helps safety. There is no compromise on safety at all, because this is giving more predictive information that we can act before the problem become bigger or big failure or impact safety of equipment or of our people. A lot of tools existing to inspect and test, and data analytics help to discover a problem before it becomes a problem. And this helps maintaining safety standard and same time the downtime elimination.
Okay. Sirisha, since you are a hands-on professional in terms of manufacturing, if you have to identify some of the key trends in terms of Industry 4.0 solutions, what would be those key trends that young professionals should watch out for or should try and learn them? Would it be 3D printing? Would it be cobots? Whatever. I mean, what do you think are the trends at the forefront right now?
So one thing for sure, AI and big data analytics, because that is something irrespective of the domain or the segment it is used. So that will be a first one I would say to start with. If it is more mechanical specific industry, then for sure 3D printing is a trending technology. And when it comes to electronics manufacturing, it will be both a combination of digitization, which means any AI based, plus also automation technologies. Automation in terms of the hardware automation, I mean here.
Okay, Soumya, in terms of supply chain, would you like to identify any particular technology that you think is something that is must for today's professional? I think Soumya seems to have dropped out. Nevertheless, I'll move on to Sama. Can someone just check if something's okay with Soumya's network? In the meanwhile, Sama, my next question is to you, and I'm now coming to the key theme of our initiative, Women Aces of Manufacturing. This initiative is all about three objectives, basically: to have women join manufacturing, to ensure that the women who are in the manufacturing industry stay with the manufacturing industry, and to see that women grow in the manufacturing industry. Have you ever thought of technology as an instrument or as a tool that could help women manufacturing professionals achieve some kind of level playing field in the manufacturing industry?
Of course, yes. Technology help women specifically. Women has a lot of potential, and maybe in certain cultures they are not seen as they should be seen. However, with technology and learning and self-learning as well, this gives the opportunity and competitive in the market for women to grow and to be in manufacturing. Manufacturing is very, very interesting field for women, and they have the capability to do this by the traits of women in general being very, very particular and looking after details. And this for sure help manufacturing in the quality area and production. It's not only in the sectors they are famous for, finance or HR. Women can add big value for manufacturing and in the technical side with their abilities and knowledge, and they have to have the tool, which is the technology, and to be updated with what they have to learn to be ready for being in manufacturing and growing and taking higher positions in manufacturing facility.
Okay, Soumya, since you had dropped out, I had a question for you. In the from the perspective of supply chain as an industry, which are the key technologies that you think are more important than others, which would help today's manufacturing professional, do better as a manufacturing professional?
Supply chain technologies for manufacturing professionals,
Correct.
is it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, so apologies. I messed up on a reboot click. Sorry about that. That's why. Yeah, so I think supply chain technologies for manufacturing professionals, I think data science analysis, which is very important emerging context today. So various tools related to data analysis is very important for a supply chain professional. If budding professionals try to give a little bit of an understanding to what is that data analytics kind of output that can come across. So that's one. Because data analytics is not only related to only IT enabled industries, but it also is very, very important to the manufacturing context of or a supply chain context for making decision outcomes. Efficient decision outcomes for bringing in a lot of cost benefit advantage. And earlier in the conversation, we talked about agility. So data analytics is something that I would think budding professionals in the manufacturing sector need to do. 20 years ago, When I started in my profession in manufacturing, data analytics was like a paper and a chart, and then say, okay, tolerance zones, everything good, CPK good, go ahead. That was data, this thing. Now data analytics has changed completely. It's just beyond those CPKs and the tolerance zones that are there. So that's what I would recommend.
Okay, Sirisha, my next question is for you. One of the profiles, or rather the functions that is mentioned in your profiles, is setting up the technology roadmap for the plant. When you do that, what are the key things that you have in your mind? Do you look at the current position of the plant? Do you look at certain data from the past, or also look at certain futuristic technologies? How is it, or is it a combination of everything?
Okay, so I would say it is for sure a combination, because where we are today and where we want to go, for sure, we might have a very high aspiration to have complete automation in terms of Industry 4.0, but sometimes it is still worth to actually pause and check, uh, does it have actually a real ROI to have everything automated? So the way we look at would be try and see what all the upcoming projects in the next 1 to 2 years, and does these projects need this level of automation or the Industry 4.0 technologies, and does it also add value to our business partners, be it our OEMs or the end customers. So those are the aspects we look at, both in terms of people upskilling, can we ramp up that fast, value add to the organization, value add to the end customers, and three as a combination we look out and then make a roadmap. And it is adaptable year on year, but that is how we go about.
Okay, Soumya, my next question is for you. While currently you are looking at supply chain as a function, in the past you also looked at leadership roles as a purchase leader, as an operations leader, and also as somebody who is taken care of HSE for the organization. How has the role of a manufacturing professional evolved in the context of, say, you as a manufacturing professional vis-a-vis the technological evolution that is happening across the world?
Two things. So back when 20 years ago, when I started my profile, I started from the shop floor operations manager kind of this thing, right? So that time, the productivity, getting the part production out, these were the context that was, largely, tutored, coached, guided across in the organization. I started my career back in city called Jamshedpur back in India, which is in the eastern part of the country in India, right? So that's how it started. And as you started evolving across my various roles in the organization, and of course, I'm thankful that the organization provided me a very learning environment to keep moving across various sub-functions and understanding, right? It kind of changed the perspective to say it's no more getting the product out. How do I get the product out? It's not what I get, but how do I get that across? And how can I make it sustainable, consistent, etc. Is something that I immediately realized it when I came into the purchasing zone, right? When we used to ask suppliers to get the products out, right? It was not about quantity alone, but it was quantity, quality, sustainability, capacity, all those elements de-risked across, which was not possible if only that myopic view we had on saying, okay, is the product coming out kind of, and that needed a lot of science, that needed a lot of analysis, that needed investments in a lot of machine technology, automation to be done in various phases. I think that's how it shaped me to become more, oriented towards ensuring that I spend time and spend my own efforts in understanding how the technology is kind of evolving to benefit an organization, industry, that kind of stuff. So I think that's where one step. The next step is when I did my HSE role, which was completely away from my comfort zone, but had a different perspective of learning. How does it impact employee safety? How does it impact, general notion of the large operative class in the world is automation is redundancies of job, right? You need to keep that mindset across and say, this is not what it is, but it is also, improving productivity, but bringing in the biggest element, which is safety, which is, how can you make it more safer, cleaner environment for working across, right? And when I say cleaner, I think earlier in the point, there was a conversation of maintaining this, environment sustainability across this place. So I think that's a different dimension I learned, right? Of using Industry 4.4 for, monitoring and tracking industrial waste in our organization and bringing that correction in the processes. So automating those corrections in processes so that, you don't have to you have those elements of treating industrial waste. The approach is not compliance oriented, but the approach is related to say, how can you make it more environment friendly across? So I think those were the shifts that I saw in my profile, and I learned as I moved from one role to the other.
Okay, one quick question, Soumya. You've done so many different roles. Which one is the most favorite of yours?
I can't pinpoint it all, honestly, because every role has given me a different learning altogether, right? But what's still
Right.
close to my heart is, I think, my foundational context, since I have stuck to manufacturing. Back then, when I passed out, I decided that's where my passion lies, and that's where my interest, I stuck to that perspective. Still, I feel I get an adrenaline, gush in myself
Rush.
when I kind of see a product outcome coming from any of this thing. So that's probably close to my heart, but there's not one particular role that's this thing. Everyone gave me a different perspective of learning.
Sirisha, I have a slightly different question for you. How exhilarating is the feeling when you see one of your products hitting out in the market? As a manufacturing professional, I think this is one of the privileges that you would have. You creating something, you engineering something, and to see that product out in the market. How do you describe that feeling?
I mean, the question itself actually brings a smile on my face for sure. Even when I drive back home or come to office, when I see the vehicles, for us from Continental, we actually supply to 4-wheelers and 2-wheelers. So when I see them on the road, it actually gives me a lot of satisfaction. Manufacturing, that's the biggest advantage, to do things on hands and see it live. Yeah, that's it.
So you enjoy it, yeah?
Yes.
Okay. Sama, if a very straightforward question to you, are you happy being a manufacturing professional?
I'm very happy. Straight answer.
So what is the most loved part of your job for you? I mean, is it you're dealing with the technology? Is it you're dealing with quality? Is it you're dealing with people on a daily basis? Or is it working for a brand like Birla Carbon? What is it that kind of appeals the most to you?
All together. I'm very happy working with Birla Carbon for sure, and this is a great place to work, Aditya Birla. And for working in the manufacturing, I was thinking when I was graduated to work in the field of medical, and after a few months training, I found no, manufacturing is more appealing to me. And when I started working here at Birla Carbon, really I enjoyed the work, and every day new learning when I move from one department to the other or function to the other till reaching unit head. Every day there is a learning. And all this is with the support of my team. So working with people here and with the support of my seniors and senior management of Birla Carbon also. This makes it's a great place for work for me. And data is a very important part of my life here. And I always say to my team the famous quote of Edward Deming, in God we trust, all others bring data. And this is the key for managing and the way we work here to reach any solution for a problem or to do any improvement in the plan.
Wonderful. Sirisha, coming to manufacturing, was it a conscious decision for you or was it an accident?
Okay, so I
I know it's a
had
tricky question. It's got nothing to do with technology.
sure. I had my mentors when I asked them how should a career look like, because I had higher aspiration to head the business. So one strong suggestion which has come up is being in R&D, knowing the design part and knowing the manufacturing. Then you're adding value to the organization. So that is how my cross move has happened. I was with R&D, moved to manufacturing, and now I can see the benefit because I can understand the holistic picture. Yeah, that is how it is.
So, for the benefits of a lot of engineering students that we have today, do you think manufacturing as a career is on par with the other careers that today's engineering students have today? Whether it is banking and finance, whether it is IT industry, do you think it is on par with those kind of careers?
I think so, yes. Given the current context of, the way the overall learning and graduation and higher studies have been evolved, engineering knowledge definitely gives you a connectivity of analytical thinking, bringing that across. Right. Going back to my current situation, if anyone tells me, do you use applied mechanics or theory of metallurgy in my today's world? I would say no, I don't directly, but I kind of connect to what does it mean across, right, to our industry
Mhm.
that we are into in power transmissions and making of our relate power generation systems across, right? So I think it is at par, and it depends on how and where do you want to choose and place yourself in terms of your passion, right? So and in terms of the salary remunerations, I think back in India, industries have evolved. So, industries, whether it's a hardcore manufacturing industry or an allied manufacturing industry, have started looking at IT enabled industries also and say, hey, how do you attract technology? Right? Gone are the days when, back in the Y2K zoo, this thing when 2000, when everyone was exodus of manufacturing was going into IT as well. I don't see that happen. Right. There are different charms which are there in each of the car areas, right? But is all IT enabled systems going to replace manufacturing? The answer is no. There is going to be need of product. There is going to be need of process and to bring those products into consumer market and this thing. So there is going to be definitely there. So three things: evolution of the learning has changed. There's no more siloed approach. B, I think at par with industries in terms of the pay scales, etc., has evolved into a larger space. And the last portion of it is related to that this industry is to stay, right? Because there's a lot of influence and merging across technology and the hardcore manufacturing, right? And that brings in a lot of connectivity to what happens across, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's that. I mean, today, if a person joins as an engineer in an organization, right, and he or she chooses to do a little bit of an upgrade in the finance career, etc., does an operation, what stops him or her to become the CFO of the organization? There's nothing, right? So if you've done production engineering or mechanical engineering or any of those process related aspects, nothing stops you to get into that space of, oh, if I have acquired skills in the related aspects. Similarly, like R&D she mentioned. So that's exactly, I think that's there.
Okay, so we have had a very interesting conversation so far, and we are almost at the fag end of the discussion. At the concluding point, I'd like each one of you to speak for a minute and address our audience here, particularly the young engineering students. And I want you to give some kind of message to the students in terms of why they need to be proficient in technology and why staying in manufacturing is going to make a big difference, not just to their lives, but to the lives of the entire humanity. Starting with Sirisha.
Okay. So learning technology for sure it is going to help. One is it manufacturing only or R&D? I mean, the career choice would be based on the personal interest also, I would say. But value add, what brings to the society would be much high When you're in manufacturing, you are able to see, visualize it, and then deliver. And also you can reinvent. It's a continuous learning process as well. So manufacturing for sure is a good profession, but then it's also interest on the people on what is that they aspire to do in future. That is how I look at it. uh, More importantly, staying with the technology, being in the continuous learning, it helps in a big way, not just at the start of the career, but throughout the career. That is something which each one of us, even at this experience level, I would say, even we are in the constant learning phase, that should never stop. Only then we'll have a successful and fulfilling life. Yeah. Thank you so much, and I would wish all the best to the students who are in this call. Yeah.
Absolutely. The most important word that I got through your observation is reinventing. You're not just talking about reinventing the entire industry, but you're talking about reinventing yourself. And you're talking about, continuously keeping updated with the technology. You need to keep reinventing yourself. I think that's the crux of what you said. Soumya, what would be your message for our audience today?
All aspiring engineering students, I think, follow your passion in terms of what gives you a very, very high energy learning environment. Learning can never stop. And I'll just give a personal example. My mom, who's a senior citizen, right? She was using a mobile phone, but her mobile phone was not a smartphone. But then when COVID came, she's adapted to a smartphone. She started using her online purchases because she stays by herself, and she's got no one. So she stays by herself and she adapted. So at that age of a senior citizen, when there is a change happening to get to technology, technology is going to be bound to be there. So for all students, whether in whichever space you are, on whichever sub verticals or academic curriculums of engineering or allied in colleges that you are in, I think adapting and learning to be aware of what's changing in technology is so important and relevant today, right? And technology affects all functions across this thing. And I gave you my mom's example, right? She never thought that she had to go and do an online purchase in Big Basket and get fruits and vegetables through that. But COVID made her to do that, right? Forced her to learn that aspect of ordering and trying. So I think that before it comes to a force, I think it's a journey that all of us have to plunge ourselves into.
True. Sama, how would you conclude this? There is just one observation that one of the audiences made. I think there is something dangling behind you which says it's time to go big. Is it true?
It is. This is
Yes.
the big event of Birla Carbon
Yes.
Innovation,
Okay.
and this is part of our strategy at Birla Carbon for innovation and as a way for Industry 4 to be innovative. And it is a big forum and a very good observation for whoever pointed this. My comment to all students is Industry 4 is changing the employment landscape. And for that, repetitive task work is going to face a challenge. And they have to keep up with the industry and the job required in the market as the labor market is changing. And they have to focus on those areas of business that promote the growth and development. And wish them all the best.
Thank you so much, Sama. We have had a lot of questions today, but due to time constraints, we may not be able to ask them today, but we'll share those questions with our panelists and we'll ensure that those answers are given back to your audiences. Thank you so much. It was wonderful having this conversation today evening with all the three super ladies here, Sama, Sirisha, and Soumya. My pleasure and my privilege to host you three today. Thank you so much. And the messages that you've given is that think big, keep reinventing and keep learning. So I think that is relevant not just for the students, but for each one of us. Thank you so much and have a great evening ahead.
Thank you so much. Good
Thank
day.
you, Niranjan. And
hi. We have to announce the lucky draw winners. We had mentioned in the starting.
Sure.
So the winners for the lucky draw is Preeti Yadav, who's from Government of Women Engineering College, Ajmer, Abhinav Sharma, who's from IIT BHU.
Wow.
Mr. Sri Ramachandran Kartha, who is a Vice President at Reliance Industries. Ms. Shatabdi, who's a student, and Ms. Khushbu Soni. So congratulations to the lucky draw winners. You will be receiving your very interesting, gift soon. Thank you to all the panelists for sharing valuable insights with all of us. I think it's not just for the young engineers, every one of us benefited out of it. Thank you. Thank you everyone for your time.